Welcome to everyone just joining us. We'll be getting started with the session in around 1 minute. Thank you for being here. Good morning or good afternoon, whenever you're joining from. Hi there, good morning to good afternoon to everyone joining. We'll be getting started with this session very shortly. Okay, I'll now invite our moderator and our speakers to turn on their cameras and take away the session. Thank you.
Hello and welcome everyone. I'm Audrey from Allen Innovation. I'm very happy, and everyone is very happy to have you today for this Malta Startup Residence Programme webinar. Before we start the session, we would like to know a little bit about you. You will see a pop-up show up on your screen. We would love to know where are you connecting from, which industry you belong. Please take a few moments to answer so we know a little more about you. We are very happy again to have you today. I'll be your host. We have partnered with Malta Enterprise and Residency Malta for this webinar about this newly launched Malta Startup Residence Programme. It's a 3 to 5 years residence program for non-EU entrepreneurs who would like to use Malta as a launch pad for their highly innovative ventures. We will be discussing the program, Malta, and we will also have a startup entrepreneur today to tell us about Malta from his point of view. We'll have a lovely video, the official Malta Startup Residence Programme launch video that you will see right now on your screen. It's a 1-minute video, please, that shows the program. Great, thank you. So I see a lot of people connected from the Caribbean. We have 32% from the Caribbean, 45% from Europe, a bit from Asia. We have, oh, interesting. We have 16% from the management consulting industry connected today, 13% from the finance sector, energy is 10%, and we also have a few in the tourism industry. Well, again, thank you, everyone. Today, to tell us more about the program, we are very happy to welcome Kurt Farrugia, CEO of Malta Enterprise, the country's economic development agency. Hi, Kurt. How are you?
Hi, very well, very well. Looking forward to this important session.
Great. We also have Charles Mizzi, CEO of Residency Malta, the agency that administers residency permits. Hi, Charles, how are you?
Hi, good afternoon, Audrey. I'm fine, thank you.
Great. These two agencies are working in sync to promote new businesses from third countries. And as well, we have Garrett Jenner, CEO and co-founders of Trust. How are you, Garrett? You'll be our testimonial today.
Hello, Audrey. I'm delighted to be here with you today. Thank you.
Thank you. So let's get started. Charles, what is the Malta Startup Residence Programme and how did it come to be?
So, as you rightly said, the Malta Startup Residence Permit is quite a new program which we launched during the last quarter of last year. It's still in its infancy. So, as a program, it's obviously, as the name states, it's targeting startups. The startup ecosystem is not new to Malta. We already have an ecosystem. Malta Enterprise, our partner in this program, are very active in this regard. They already welcome a lot of startups to Malta. What we did with this new program is to facilitate the process of attracting people from third countries, people from outside of the EU. So the specific program is primarily intended for non-Europeans, so that they can come over to Malta and set up their new business venture over here. So in a nutshell, the program is intended to facilitate the immigration process of these entrepreneurs. What we have done is following a lot of discussions and research, even with existing startups in Malta, we have devised a program targeted for these entrepreneurs, for these investors who are looking at Malta. We have created a program which is flexible, which gives them also peace of mind in knowing that the permit is a medium-term permit. They don't need to keep renewing the permit every year. So as a starting point, for example, when one gets the permit, they will be given a three-year permit with the option to renew for a further 5 years if their business is successful. Another interesting point is the fact that the program has also been designed to enable them to bring their core employees, the people which will be crucial for the setting up and for the success of the business. We did not stop there. We went a step further, and we're also facilitating the process of bringing their families with them to Malta. We want these individuals to relocate to our island to live here. And obviously, we know that these people would like to have their immediate family members with them. So we're extending, let's say, this invitation for all their family members to be in Malta to come to our island. Apart from these logistical features, apart from the permits, the residence permits, together with Malta Enterprise, we have also devised a package for them to make sure that they are adequately served. They are provided a one-stop shop service to assist them from the application process and even during the setting up of their business. So we are aiming to create a direct relationship with these individuals.
All right, so I understand this program is for 3 years, can be renewed for 5 years. Quite extensive. You worked a lot on this program to design it. So Kurt, can you tell us what kind of businesses are eligible for the program? What are the criteria?
First of all, good morning and good afternoon from wherever those joining us today are following, and thank you very much for this opportunity. Well, it's an important question because we will not be fitting startups and companies into a box and whether that company fits that box or not will make you eligible or not. What we are looking for are game changers in the various industries that we service. Of course, as a scheme itself, we did list down a number of sectors that we are targeting as Malta in our economic development strategy. But at the same time, we're mainly looking at the most innovative startups and the game changers in various industries. So we are not boxing startups, because we know from experience, and we are joined by Gareth here, that startups do have their own realities, and the ideas that are being developed worldwide can find home in various places. So we're telling such companies that Malta is an ideal home for them, and that they can basically set up their startup here, obtain their residency, and make a life in Malta, or build their life in Malta. So yes, in reality, through the scheme itself, we're looking at manufacturing sectors, software development, health, biotechnology, medical technology, and all the other innovative activities that would disrupt a particular market or sector. And that is where Malta Enterprise is putting its know-how in the program, and working with Residency Malta to ensure that on the business aspect, the company is the right fit. So sometimes we will just turn on the companies and tell them, possibly Malta is not an ideal place for you. I highly, or from experience, those are not the majority. But our conversation with startups and with companies is very frank. So we'll be reviewing the business model, we'll be reviewing their business plans, discussing frankly with the applicant, and then move ahead to see that the startup is successful here. And we will not simply tick a box and say eligible, not eligible, your innovative startup is good. We will be with the company all throughout the journey, the business journey in Malta. And as Malta Enterprise, we are not offering just this scheme, but we have an array of schemes for companies that would like to join the startup ecosystem in Malta. So we have the startup finance, which is a non-dilutive scheme where we basically give a repayable advance that can go up to 800,000 euro for the more innovative startups. We do manage grants as well. So along with that, we can also add a 200,000 euro grant, which would help with relocation and relocating employees, as well as initial wage costs. So we can sit down with a particular startup, if the startup, of course, fits the profile of what we're looking for, and we fit the profile of what the startup is looking for, and talk on how we can take their experience or their product to the next level through Malta. And basically, that is what we're seeking to do with this program, and basically is offering a home, offering a lifestyle here in Malta, in the European Union, very strategically located, close to Africa, the Middle East, and the MENA region. So basically, that is what we offer. And one thing which is very important, and I believe quite different from other jurisdictions, is that we will have a direct relationship with all our clients. And that is one very important aspect of what we do as Malta Enterprise. And that is basically offer a human interface, a human relationship throughout the journey of a business that is setting up in Malta.
Thank you, Kurt. Is that's a question that comes to my mind, because you just talked about how it's well located, and I'm thinking about the markets. would you agree that maybe a fitting startup might be one that are looking for multiple markets, a market that can be European and maybe African, but may also more Asia Pacific? What's your thoughts?
Indeed. So Malta is a small island, but its location is very important. First of all, it's a European state, and it is part of the European Union. So the market there is a big market in itself, but we're extremely close to Africa. So we're a lot closer to Africa than most of the European states that are neighboring us. And basically Libya is a 30-minute flight away from Malta, and the rest of Africa is very reachable. So what we can offer, of course, and what we do tell all our clients is that Malta in itself is not the market. So when you're looking at Malta, you're testing your product, you're using the Maltese markets to show your product and showcase your product. But then the way companies are setting up here is that they're exporting their product and their services. And Africa is very reachable, as I already said. The Middle East is extremely reachable. The MENA regions are also, we're also very well connected there. But again, if you see the pie chart of where our products are exported, you find exports in the US, you find exports in most of Asia, you find exports in all the regions in the world. So from Malta, basically, we export many products and many components, which possibly most of the people who are following wouldn't even know that the products are being exported in Malta. So basically, any mobile in the world, I won't mention the name of mobiles, but would have a microchip possibly that has been developed and has been manufactured in Malta. So from that aspect, and seeing the size of the island, you'd be surprised the amount of products that leave Malta and reach all of the world.
It's very interesting because it looks like this program offers a very extensive support for startups, for different, I guess, for the expansion and maybe for strengthening the startups and then the expansion. So Charles, I'm curious. The program is a collaboration between your two agencies. So what does it look like from a client perspective, from a startup perspective?
Obviously, more probably the people listening to us are saying it's quite difficult to deal with one agency, one government agency, let alone with two. Obviously, I would like to put their mind at rest that they will not be dealing with two agencies. They will be dealing with one team. We have set up a team which works closely in it together. It will be a seamless process from the minute they get in touch with us to clarify any questions or get information to the moment they start their application process, and thereon, after hopefully the application is successful, as Kurt pointed out, we will enter into a one-to-one relationship with these investors, with these individuals. It will be a smooth process. There will not be any bureaucracies of having to deal with more than one agency who will assist them throughout the whole process, even to get the residence permits, to apply for the employment licenses, to start up their business. Malta Enterprise have a very efficient service, which is called the Business First, which helps individuals from start to end. Obviously, there will be a big team working behind the scenes. Malta Enterprise will be reviewing the business proposal. We, from our side, will be dealing with the due diligence aspect on the individuals, on the founders, co-founders, etc. But despite all this work which will be happening behind the scenes, the individual will be dealt with by a single point of contact.
So from what I understand, Malta Enterprise will be the single pole of contact for those startups, right? And the idea is to smooth the introduction of the startups to the Malta ecosystem and the startup ecosystem. You review the business proposal, help with the issue permits, but I guess also that's the really important thing is how startups can feel included into this new ecosystem that they will join in. Kurt, what is the startup ecosystem look like in Malta?
Okay, thank you. That's a very interesting question. Now, as Malta, the startup ecosystem has been developing very nicely in the past few years, and it all, in reality, it all starts and builds up on experience. And the experience we have had so far with the startups that have set up in Malta is that, first of all, they're creating various new economic sectors and economic niches that are very important in the island's economic success, because they are linking to various industries that are already in Malta. Particularly, I can mention the traditional manufacturing sectors and other IT services and IT products and AI and technology products that are now linking to the traditional economic players in Malta. At the same time, we've been also learning by doing so in the past 3 to 4 years through our incentives and through the experience that we've been having on a personal level with such startups. We've been also refining our offering as a young startup jurisdiction. And that is why we have set up a platform which is called Start in Malta. And through Start in Malta, we are showcasing the experiences that startups are having in Malta, as well as the incentives that we can offer. As wide as startups can be, we have been attracting companies in fintech, in regtech, in medical technology, in life sciences and biosciences, digital games, and data and cybersecurity. And that's just a small part of the companies that are setting up in Malta, because there are a lot more. I can mention other companies in fertility technology. And the list of sectors and startups that we've seen and are part of our ecosystem has been growing exponentially. And I must say that they have been very successful also in obtaining financing, not just through the government system, but also private financing and equity financing. So in that aspect, I think that through the experience of the past years, I can say that the ecosystem is a vibrant one and one that is growing. And I would say that our startup ecosystem is still in its startup phase. And that's why we are very willing to link up with startups in the various sectors that I have been mentioning, and make sure that we develop a program in its totality. So we're discussing on a legal framework which is specific for startups, to ensure that when they land on Malta, they know that there is a set of rules that will apply specifically to startups. And that's why the experience that we can get from companies that are coming, not just from within the EU, but also from outside the EU, is crucial at this stage of our development.
Would you say that Malta Enterprise is a robust regulation and legislative framework, and why so?
And yes, so Malta Enterprise is the Economic Development Agency, and while it manages a number of schemes and has a direct relationship, a one-stop shop, so to speak, to businesses, we are also very active when it comes to, since we're a government entity, advising government on the next steps of the economy according to the experience and data and research that we do through our research department. And that is why every now and then we are consulted by government, and we also have an advocacy role within government to ensure that when we see opportunities or issues that we need to tackle to ensure that businesses from all the various sectors that we cover have issues that need to be tackled, we ensure that government is there to listen. So we propose laws, we propose regulations, we propose new schemes, and we're also very quick as a jurisdiction to adapt to the changes. So, for instance, with the pandemic, we were among the first European states to start assisting companies with a wage supplement to each and every individual that applied for assistance on wages, and that's during COVID. We're also supporting companies that have issues at the moment with the current conflicts that are around us, and that is how government is subsidizing and helping with energy costs. So in terms of jurisdiction and in terms of what we offer as Malta Enterprise, we do adapt according to the different global situations and ensure that we step in where business is needed.
Okay, that's very encouraging, I guess, for everyone who is listening. So now I'm very curious and very happy to welcome Garrett, CEO and co-founder of Trust Stamp. Thank you, Garrett, for joining us today. Yes, you are the one that will really give us your thoughts on actually moving to Malta. So can you tell us, Garrett, what does Trust Stamp do?
So Trust Stamp basically answers two questions using artificial intelligence. And they are, who are you and do I trust you? And so our AI technology has a broad range of uses, from one of the largest credit card issuers in the United States to the federal government, to creating identities for people with no legal identity in Africa. We have partners like MasterCard International and FIS, which processes half the world's consumer payments.
How many people do you have working for Trust Stamp today? What kinds of jobs do they have, and
Sure.
where are they in the world?
So the vast majority of our staff are engineers working in the fields of artificial intelligence and machine learning. And so in Malta, we have about 35 team members today, and they are focused on research and development, primarily in the area of biometrics. So how do we identify someone, and how do we do so fairly, but how do we do so while also protecting their privacy?
Mm-hmm. And where did you start? Where did Trust Stamp start?
So Trust Stamp started in the United States in 2016. We then expanded into the United Kingdom, bought a subsidiary in Poland, then set up in the Philippines. And when we were looking to establish in both the EU and Africa, obviously we started to look at European states. Though we were already in 5 countries, English was a common language. And so a country where English was the primary spoken language was a huge advantage. But something which wasn't mentioned is that Malta isn't just a member of the EU, it's also the only EU member to be a member of the Commonwealth. And that is actually hugely impactful if you're looking at the market in Africa, where the Commonwealth is a very significant influence. But for Malta, we have leapfrogged. So Trust Stamp Malta opened offices in the Netherlands, in Denmark, through introductions to the Rwanda government in Rwanda, and the last through introductions from Trade Malta which works very closely with Malta Enterprise in Ghana. So Malta has truly been a launch pad for us into the EU and into Africa.
Very interesting. So were you in the chronology of things? So did Malta come to you in a way, or you already had your criteria and then Malta fits?
We had our criteria, but I was speaking at a banking and fintech conference in London and met Brian Camilleri, one of Kurt's team, who sort of proactively approached me and said, hey, you need to know more about Malta because I just heard what you had to say. You're a great fit for Malta and a great fit for the sort of companies we wanted to attract. So it was that proactive approach. And then in the Malta Enterprise way, they stuck with me and provided me with more and more information, beguiled me to visit Malta, which I did in March of 2020, just at the start of COVID. Not at the time knowing that we would definitely be ready to jump. The world was full of uncertainties. And then heard this message from Malta Enterprise, we hear, but now's actually the best time to do it. While other people aren't moving, you should act. And Malta Enterprise managed to encourage and help us to open in Malta by the first week in August of 2020, all set up during COVID, and have our first class of AI trainee engineers in place the first week in August. And nobody could believe this. You can't go thousands of miles away, set up a company, deal with everything you need to deal with, open an office and recruit people in 3 or 4 months in the middle of COVID. But we did. And that's because Malta Enterprise was a one-stop shop. And they were able to say, look, there are a number of things you need to be able to put in place, but we'll help you to do that. When necessary, they walked documents around Malta for us, at a time when you couldn't get couriers to deliver. They made it practical to do it.
That's very impressive. And again, that shows the support and the excellency mindset that Malta Enterprise has. So on a daily basis, how did you work with Malta Enterprise to set up the business? You talked about hiring. How was it like?
They behaved, and maybe I shouldn't oversell this because I'm creating too much work for Malta Enterprise, but Malta Enterprise behaved as if they were our management and logistical consultants. In every area of the business, we had a conversation. Where it wasn't something they directly helped with, they brought into the conversation the people who could directly help with it. And then they didn't just pass it off. They then continued to monitor it, check back in, make sure things were going as we needed them to go. So they were a true partner all the way through. And what really amazed me was I could understand that in terms of attracting businesses, but it's continued. As I say, our expansion from Malta has been done because today we, on a weekly basis, are in contact with people from Malta Enterprise who are bringing us ideas, potential customers, and asking us what they can help with. It's a continuing partnership.
Mm-hmm. And so how do you, and now do you continue to work with Malta Enterprise? How do they continue to help right now?
No, absolutely. From identifying opportunities within the European Union for us, to keeping us abreast of the financing opportunities that Malta has, to this Thursday, tomorrow, they are bringing a potential client to our office for us. So this is a continual process. They've helped us to grow, and we believe that they're always going to be alongside us, helping us with that.
Do you have currently employees in Malta that are from Malta? And what has been your experience in recruiting talent in Malta?
Yeah, so I'm going to make a point which is strangely contradictory. We brought over staff from the United States and the United Kingdom in the first place. They were all intended to be temporary. And our objective was to train Maltese staff. Our CTO has ended up moving his wife, 2 daughters, 3 dogs and cat to Malta, and they've declared they're here for the rest of their life. Our CFO, whose wife had literally never been away from her family in Georgia for more than 1 week, came here for 6 weeks maximum, and are secondly now approaching their 3rd year of being in Malta. and regard this as their home, at least for now. So on the one hand, people fall in love with Malta. On the other hand, we've been incredibly successful at what we aim to do, which is finding local talent. And it falls into two pools. Malta Enterprise were blunt that we would need to be willing to train people. So that first week we were open, we had 15 trainees in the office, all graduates of Malta institutions, but needing the skills to be desk ready for AI and machine learning. But they came and were ready and eager to learn. So we found that there was talent here if you're willing to provide the training and expertise for them. But secondly, we found there was talent who had gone overseas, but really wanted to be in Malta. And once they were presented with the opportunity to have a really interesting job, and what we do is fairly unique in terms of our AI expertise, and live in Malta, they came home to Malta. So we have had no problem recruiting. We've replaced jobs in other countries with jobs in Malta. We're just about to replace a number of jobs that we have in Central Europe, mainland Central Europe, with people in Malta, because the work ethic here is fantastic, but people really, really want to contribute, and that's been the exciting part for us. You know, people get involved with the company, and they regard it as and refer to it as a second family.
That looks amazing, and thank you again for sharing that also very personal point of view. Did you bring any employees with you from other locations? Yeah. I guess
we brought some of our UK team over to open the office. I said our chief technology officer came with the intent of sort of setting up the technology team and has now made it his home for life. Our chief finance officer came. And we're a public company in the US, so the location of your chief finance officer is pretty important. And he came for 6 weeks to set up the accounting and finance team. And as I said, 2 years later, is still here. And so those people we brought absolutely fell in love with it. Some we told had to go home because we were replacing them literally. And they came for 2 years. Unfortunately, the great thing about the Malta Enterprise and the residency scheme is, of course, as was indicated, it's a medium term. And so we had to say to them, we don't care that you've got a visa. You know, we brought you here for 2 years, go home. You can still come visit. But they liked that certainty when they came here.
In fact, if I may button at this stage, and it links exactly to what Garrett is saying, and why we are here discussing the residency program is in fact part of the experience of working with companies like Garrett's, because Garrett needed to get his core employees here back then. Now through the residency program, the founders, co-founders, the core employees and their families can be able to get a residence permit for 3 years plus 5 years. In Garrett's case, it would have been 8 years, 3 years, but almost automatically 5 years, because the company has been doing so well in the first 3 years that there would have been no doubt that the residence scheme would have been extended for companies like Garrett's. And possibly he's been playing up, and I thank him for that, Malta Enterprise. But I must say, and this is not to in any way give back the compliments to trust them, but it's an amazing company that has been a game changer locally, but mainly internationally, because the product that they're offering and the solutions that they come up with through the various extremely innovative ways that they are offering has made the company successful. So in reality, it's the company that is very, very good, and it's on their own merit that they are expanding in other countries and not simply because they're in Malta. What we did is facilitate as much as possible the experience of companies such as Trustem. And that is where I think what I said earlier, that we are in a learning process, and through the experience and by keeping in touch directly with friends, I'd say, because that's how we've become along the years. And every time I meet Garrett and other startups, they would always tell me that we need to improve on particular aspects. We need incentives to attract talent, for instance, and that is how then we sit down and bounce ideas with people such as Residency Malta to ensure that the offering itself of the island is one that will welcome and that will be even a better experience than Garrett had through the feedback that we get along the years, and through the experience that we meet on our everyday work.
Well, thank you very much for this insights. And as you mentioned, Trust Stamp is a good company. And I believe, and I think everyone will agree, that a good company reflects also the CEO. So I'm curious also, Garrett, in terms of as an individual, a person, how have you been living? How long have you been living in Malta? How do you enjoy it? What's the islands look like for you, the main highlights? Can you provide a bit of more personal experience?
Yeah, so I will say that when my wife and I moved here, we didn't know how long it would be for. We leased an apartment, and we came here in July of 2020 in the midst of COVID, when life was not that which it normally would be. And by December of 2020, my wife said, "This is now our home. So get used to it. We're staying here. Sell the house in the US." And that is similar to the experience, as I said, that other senior executives have had, and that's made by the Maltese people. We've been made to feel absolutely at home here. Malta is a very civilized place to live, with people who will proactively go out of their way to help you. For startups, the costs are much lower, and that's very pleasant. And so, quite apart from the weather, because the sun shines here for the vast majority of days of the year, all of these factors simply make Malta a wonderful place to live. And I have to say, I had not expected that it would become my permanent home, any more perhaps than our CTO had. But once you live here, you don't want to part with it. So it's a great place to live.
So what you talked about cost is between the three of you can actually dive deeper into what are the advantages in terms of cost for a startup compared to another.
Yeah, because we're now in 9 countries, I can probably give you a decent perspective. I think in terms of talent, our cost for comparative level of talent is around 30 to 40% of our cost in the US. And that's not the cost in Silicon Valley, okay? It's probably 20% of the cost in somewhere like Silicon Valley. I'm talking about the cost of an average city. But on the other hand, the cost of living for those people, the tax burden for those people is so much lower that their lifestyle here is considerably better and less stressed than in the United States. The costs of bureaucracy are very low here. The costs of being an employer are very low here compared to most places that we are. Overall, I think that we can probably grow here at half the cost to most other countries that we're located in.
Mm-hmm. Would you recommend Malta? I mean, this cost or what would be the main advantage for a startup to start a business and choose Malta?
So we talked about, obviously, access to the European markets and to Africa. There's also a sort of twist the other way around, which is obviously we started and where our parent company, as says, a US company listed on NASDAQ. So this doesn't apply to us. But if you're a European country that wants to do business in the United States, the fact that you can set up in an English-speaking country makes it an awful lot easier to do that the other way around. So the ability to do business is incredibly important. I would also say that Malta Enterprise approaches a relationship as a good potential investor would. So they do due diligence, but they're not being a gatekeeper to keep you out. They're trying to work out how to help you. Now, if Kurt mentioned the $200,000 grant and $800,000 loan facility for the most innovative companies, which have substantial potential to growth. Now, I say to people, when we went on NASDAQ, I ended up owning 5% of the public company. If I'd had that funding from Malta Enterprise when I took our early funding, I'd have owned 25% of the company. That's incredibly significant. Secondly, that funding was in 2020, at a time when investors were really, really nervous, when everybody was nervous. So as we then went out to raise investment, and we did it through crowdfunding, the fact that Malta had made this commitment to the Research and Development Center, and we were able to say, we have $1 million of funding for the new R&D center. That's an incredibly powerful message. So funding is a very important part of it. But you have to have a good business plan, clearly, to earn that funding. But for somebody who's got a good business plan, and is also progressive, Malta is now looking for the earliest stage startups. They're not going to get €1 million, but they're going to get the funding appropriate to that stage and know as they grow, the funding appropriate to the next stage is also potentially available to their business. And that's a huge reason to be in Malta.
Mm-hmm. It's and jumping on that last part, what would you be, I guess it's being prepared, or how would you say what's the most important thing an entrepreneur should know or think, about if they're considering Malta as a location for their startup and working with Malta Enterprise?
When you approach Malta Enterprise, don't think, look, this is a gatekeeper who I need to sell. Think this is a potential partner who I need to share my dreams, but also my challenges with, because that open dialogue will maximize the potential for Malta Enterprise to be able to help you. They're not going to sell you, as Kurt said, if it's not the right fit. Malta Enterprise will help you understand that. So it's a two-way process, but communicate openly and see this as an opportunity to get the best business partner you can possibly get.
Thank you, Garrett, for this amazing testimonial. I think it gives a pretty good idea of the potential of that collaboration, as you mentioned, is a transparent collaboration, a support. So we invite everyone also to be very transparent and encouraged to share your dreams and vision to Malta Enterprise. Thank you, Garrett. I think that the interesting part now is from those information, how do you apply? How should interested non-EU entrepreneurs should apply? Charles, can you guide us on the process, please?
I think the first thing you need to do is set up a meeting with Garrett so that he can explain the process, and he will take you through what not to do and what to do. No, joking apart, it was very, very nice hearing Garrett sharing his experience with us all here today. It's very nice to hear that has been successful, especially in such turbulent times. So 2020 was not easy for anyone, but as a government, sort of we're very pro-business. The government sort of has helped a lot of businesses, both local businesses and even foreign businesses like Trust Stamp, and this has helped to keep the economy going, and sort of we are very proud to have a very thriving economy. When it comes to the application process, it's pretty straightforward. So the first thing we do is we set up a meeting with the prospective applicants, the prospective investors. so that we can discuss the ideas, what they have in mind, and guide them on the process. We have a look at the business proposal, and if there some fine-tuning is required, we will tell them there and then. Once we have this informal chat with these individuals, we'll guide them on the application process. The application forms are all online. They can easily be downloaded. We will help them to fill in the application. Once all documentation is in hand, we will start our vetting process. As I said earlier on, Malta Enterprise will be looking at the business opportunity, at the business proposal, obviously where their expertise lies. From our side, we will look at the residence permit application. Once we conduct all the checks, we will get in touch with the applicant and communicate our decision. Usually, this process takes somewhere between 3 to 6 months, depending on the application per se. If the investors would like to apply for funding from Malta Enterprise, obviously the process will take a little bit more. But more or less, it's somewhere between 3 to 6 months.
Okay, thank you very much, Charles. From what I understand, yes, there is this expected time frame between 3 to 6 months. We had the discussion, I guess it's 4 months for application without fundings, and
Exactly.
we 6 months for application with fundings.
Exactly.
All right. Okay, I guess that's very, very nice to know about the application. So we invite everyone first to contact Malta Enterprise by the email that has just been shared on the chat under my name. So feel free to send an email, get ready to speak with the team. If you have any, do anyone wants to add something, or are we ready to tackle the questions? Because we have a few questions from the audience. Yes?
Okay.
Right. So I have one question here, question for Kurt. Can you speak to any unique challenges or opportunities facing startups in the Maltese market specifically?
Yes, of course, challenges will always be there, and that is why we try to be very open when companies come and meet us, and they share their experience and share their what they want to do in Malta. Of course, despite trying as hard as possible to ensure that the journey, even through government entities, is as smooth as possible, there's always a bureaucratic aspect to funding. And that is one issue that we've been working really closely to ensure that especially startups have all the support that they need. But at the end of the day, we are administering public funds, and we need to give an account to government on the funds that we spend and the investment that Malta Enterprise does in the various enterprises that come and set up in Malta. So that can prove itself to be a challenge, but then again, as Garrett mentioned, we ensure that rather than be a bottleneck or an obstacle, we ensure that we smoothen the process and work together with the company to ensure that the setting up and the starting up in a new country is as smooth as possible, and in the circumstances where you're either relocating or setting up new offices or a new concern in another country. So that is one challenge that companies might find. Then, of course, there are challenges that are being experienced all over the world, and attracting talent, while it's quite a positive way of looking at relocating to Malta sometimes can also be challenging. And that is why we have a dedicated unit within Malta Enterprise, which we call the implementation unit, that will ensure that if you need visas, if you need any permits to move to Malta and relocate to Malta or reside in Malta, then we have a specific unit that will take care of the needs of a company. And we've been giving this service also throughout the difficult times of the pandemic, when, for instance, traveling was an issue. We made sure that we had the best relations with our public health authorities to put out recommendations on the people and the companies that are associated or related to Malta Enterprise. And through our approvals, they usually have a pass and a stamp of good standing of that company. So yeah, challenges we'll always find, but in general we'll ensure that such challenges are smoothened as much as possible. Then of course there are all the opportunities that we've been discussing all throughout this session. And namely the fact that we are a new member state, but with very close connections to the rest of the Mediterranean region, the Mediterranean basin, Africa, Middle East, and very well connected to Asia. Of course, the access to funds as well as the ease of doing business. And sometimes we do tend to underestimate it, but it's been mentioned over and over again, the fact that we are part of the Commonwealth and we speak the English language as one of our official languages. We have two languages, that is the Maltese language and the English language. All our laws and all our education is conducted in English. Our healthcare system is very easy to access, and we have a world-class healthcare system. So in essence, it's a very good place where to live and do business. And that is why I think the opportunities at the moment lie here in Malta. And again, we're not exclusive. So companies and entrepreneurs will shop around and they will find that there are other jurisdictions that can be a good fit. What we are doing here is showing and improving our ecosystem and our jurisdiction to ensure that companies have a smooth pathway to Europe and to the rest of the world.
And that's that raises a question that I can see also on the chat. So how does the program differ from other similar programs in Europe? You mentioned the advantages, and how are we comfortable to compare, and how does it differ from different programs in Europe and even around the world?
Charles, would you like to go with this, or?
Yes. Okay, no problem. It's a very good question and very difficult question to answer. I would say, rather than making a sort of direct comparison with other programs, because obviously there are a lot of programs around the world, and I would say all are good and all provide very good benefits to startups. What I can say is that we give a lot of attention to sort of our customer service. We try to create a relationship, a good relationship with our clients, with these prospective applicants. That is where we would like to make a difference ourselves. I think that is where we can be different from other jurisdictions who want to make these people feel welcome in our country. We want them to make Malta their new home. We've heard Gerrit speak about his personal experience and also of the employees, the talent that he brought over to Malta. And this is also something that we are experiencing on a daily basis, even through other programs that we offer. People who come to Malta they say sort of they are coming to Malta for a short-term period, and then they come knocking on our doors to see if they can extend their stay in our island. People who come on their own and then bring over their families with them because they feel comfortable and they feel at home here. Because they know that Malta's a safe country. It's easy to communicate. We've had some experiences from other countries. One thing that comes to mind, for example, there was a particular family who applied for a residency in another country. They needed to go to hospital because someone from their family fell ill, but they couldn't communicate with the doctor. Things which sometimes we take for granted. In Malta, these things obviously won't happen. Sometimes we're in meetings and in seminars, and you hear people saying that one day I heard someone who was saying that women can go jogging safely on the university campus. And to be honest, I was a bit surprised hearing that, because in Malta you see women jogging all over the country freely and safely. Things which we normally take for granted ourselves, and I think that is the most beautiful thing of our country, the sort of the quality of life that we offer. And obviously, since we're talking about a program which deals with sort of business opportunities, I think also the fact that, as I mentioned earlier on, we have a pro-business government, and who created agencies like ourselves, like Malta Enterprise, to give full and complete support to new businesses to come to Malta.
Sure, thank you, Charles. Thank you. I'd like to say goodbye to Garrett today that has to leave. So thank you, Garrett, a lot. We hope that we have your information. And if anyone, you had some questions, but I guess I invite everyone to connect with Garrett, maybe on LinkedIn, or if you can drop, if you have time, your email, so people can contact you. Thank you again for this amazing testimonial, and I wish you a pleasant end of your day. We can continue with some questions. Thank you, Charles, again for the question. I just wanted to say bye to Garrett. I have interesting question here is about the security. What is the concern given to the security of the maritime domain? How do you see the importance of it? This question sounds, I'm not sure I understand it, but I want to address it because it tackles the maritime topic, and I think it's quite interesting to look at this angle, especially if we're talking about exportation, maybe of products. Do you have...
Is it possible to repeat the question, because I cannot see it right away?
What is the concern giving to the security of the maritime domain?
Well, what I can say is that we are a small island surrounded by sea. So in terms of territorial, we have more territorial sea, a lot more territorial sea than territorial land. And part of what we promote as well in our program and in our startup ecosystem are companies that operate in the blue economy, in the maritime sector. We have a huge maritime register. I believe we're on top of the world in terms of maritime register and registering of boats in Malta. And of course, security is an aspect that we look at very closely because as an island, we are very peaceful island. We've never had in the past recent years, since basically becoming an independence in 1964, we've never had any issues with any country around us. So in terms of security, we're an extremely secure country. But at the same time, we pride on the fact that our maritime sector is very strong. So any opportunities that are related to security and the maritime industry, we're very interested in developing such concepts. For instance, we have companies that are using Malta as a base to remotely service huge LNG tankers that, for instance, are in Asia and Singapore or all around the world. And we know at the moment what an important sector energy is. So that sort of company and that sort of solutions to the issues that we are facing is something that we work with companies to ensure that we provide such solutions. I don't know if that answers this particular question. I'm very willing to answer any question, either by finding me on LinkedIn or also send me an email or any of the social media channels of Malta Enterprise.
Sure, thank you, Kurt. I have another one. Is what role do you see accelerators and incubators playing in the Malta's startup ecosystem?
Very interesting one, because we have been also developing a system whereby whereby accelerators can open up their hubs in Malta. And we have, for instance, a very important player in the accelerator sector, which is Plug and Play, which probably most of the people who are following this webinar are acquainted to. And we have a specific program running in Malta for startups that want a Plug and Play accelerator program. And we also support startups to go through such programs. So we have a very targeted scheme for companies that want an accelerator program that, of course, is held in Malta. And we basically support the fees to go through an accelerator program. We have other accelerator programs here, such as an accelerator specific on education technology. It's called Supercharger, and we're in discussions with other entities such as Visa, who are starting their Visa Innovation Program, mainly for fintech, insurtech, regtech companies that want to accelerate or incubate through Malta, and that such initiatives are helping a lot our ecosystem. So yes, accelerators and incubators are very important. Also, not to forget that as Malta Enterprise, we also have an incubator center of our own, where it can serve as a touchdown facilities for such companies. So companies who want to set up in Malta and need space, at least for the first few years, to touch down in Malta, and then possibly find property or find leasing or renting of office space or manufacturing site, then they can start their operation in Malta through space that we can land at very good prices in terms of competitive prices, in terms of what is on offer as industrial space. Then if they want to grow in manufacturing, Malta Enterprise also offers industrial space and industrial land as part of our offering and our schemes. So in that case, of course, we can sit down and discuss the best way on how to assist such companies.
Thank you very much. Next question, are there any specific industries or sector that you see as particularly strong for startups in Malta?
Yes, so medical technology and biotechnology are two areas that have been growing in Malta, but also the life sciences sector is another important one, something that we have not touched upon in this session is that we have a very important regulation when it comes to medical cannabis. And we've been seeing research and development in this sector being conducted out of Malta through a regulated framework. Also, financial services is a very important sector in Malta, and fintech companies, regtech companies, the various technology companies or service as a software companies that are disrupting the industries have also a place where to start, because we do regulate according to sectors. And for instance, something that might be of interest is that we've been among the first to put in a framework, a regulatory framework for blockchain and the various applications of blockchain. So that is why being a small island, very well connected, and having a very stable economic environment is helping Malta to be as quick as possible in terms of, or when it comes to regulating and legislating. Again, we have, Charles earlier mentioned this, we have entities that are open for business, and we've been working and developing sandboxes for specific sectors. That's why I started my intervention by saying we do not put a box, and if you fit in it exactly, you will get in. At the same time, we ensure that we sit down and find solutions rather than find the problems. But again, I'll keep saying it. We will be in a dialogue, and we will tell you what will help your business and what can hinder your business. And I think that's a way of building a relationship with the companies.
Great. Interesting. I have almost a case study here. Someone mentioned that I am working with a fintech startup, seed stage. If all goes to plan, we will require 10 million euros growth working capital at approximately month 20. After, for example, we moved to Malta. I was browsing the website, but could not figure out what the proportion of this may be fundable through Malta enterprise proportion, private capital vs proportion loan guarantee. Okay. Could you?
Yes, so I think it's important that this viewer goes into the website startinmalta.com. There are the various schemes that we offer, but just by quickly looking at the question, what I can say is that once an application is filed in for the scheme startup finance, and the company is an innovative company, in reality under the broad aspects of innovation as listed by the European Union, then the company will be eligible for a loan which can go up to 800,000 euro. That is a loan which only starts being paid back when the company makes a profit. And even when that company makes a profit, we will not take all that profit to return the loan, but we will have a repayment program that will take up to 10% of that profit. And another aspect of this scheme is that it's non-dilutive. So we're not taking equity from that company. We're actually giving a loan that will start being paid once the company makes a profit. And of course, there are other schemes that we can offer. As we mentioned earlier, the business development grant, which will help companies relocate, will help companies also to take it to the next stage. And that is a direct grant. So we can see a situation where a company, and the most innovative companies, can take repayable advance of up to 800,000 euro and a grant of 200,000 euro. And that would take it up to a maximum of 1 million euro to set up and start in Malta. Of course, as we mentioned earlier, it depends at what stage the startup is. So if through our evaluation, we see that particular startup is eligible or would be evaluated at, I don't know, 400,000 rather than 800,000, then we will reply back and say, you know, you have a fantastic idea. We think that you would be eligible for up to 400,000 or 300,000 or 500,000, according to the business plan that is submitted by the particular startup. And that is the way we operate, and we have been operating our schemes.
Thank you, Kurt. I have a question that maybe Charmaline, is there a particular size or maybe type of startup do you prioritize? That's something we tackle at the beginning, but I'll let you.
It's okay. It's okay. No, of course, in a way, we do not put a tag on the smaller startups or those who have an idea, but the documentation we require, which is basically a business plan, would mean that a company has a very clear idea of where it wants to go, and a clear plan for the next 3 to 5 years. So we are, even though we can cater to other schemes, smaller schemes, such as the business start, which can give up to anything between 5,000 to 200,000 for the very initial stage startups. But in general, the startup finance and the larger funding opportunities would go to the startups that have a clear idea, a clear business plan, and have a product that is viable and ready to be to go on the market. And that is where what we are targeting through the residency scheme, as well as our startup finance and the schemes I have been mentioning. But once again, if there's someone following and they have an idea which is not very developed, but they want to develop that in Malta, then we have other schemes that will fund up at an intensity which is less than the 400,000 or 800,000 that we've been mentioning, but possibly with a grant of 20 to 25,000, they can have a proper business plan and have a plan on how to make that very good idea into a minimum viable product. And, you know, that is something that we can work with as well and help again.
Thank you very much, Kurt. I really, have in mind and that from session that you are very great support, and we encourage everyone to contact Malta Enterprise. Ask your questions. The more detail they are here and very open to hear them. We have 10 minutes left. I think that may be a good time to resume and summarize the main takeaways of the session today, of the webinar. So let's start with you, Kurt. You were first. What are the most important things for entrepreneurs to know about Malta as business owners?
Yes, especially for the requirements of this scheme, which is the residence program. Basically, what we are looking at are the companies and the startups that have a very good idea that will be a game changer for their own industry or any industry that they operate in. So we're not looking just at at one or two sectors, but we're looking at the wider economic activities. We are very strong, as I said, in medical technology, biotechnology. When it comes to the blue and green economy, we have, as I said earlier, huge seas around us that can be a very important test bed for the products that are growing through the blue and green economy. Aviation is another sector that we have been very innovative in, and anything related to technology, from AI, as we had Garrett talk about identity solutions, to blockchain, where we've been trailblazers when it comes to the regulatory aspect of blockchain and the use in various aspects, and not just the ones that started very early on using the blockchain. So I'd say that in reality, the most important aspect of Malta is that we can tailor make solutions for companies. We are an EU country very close to Africa and the Middle East, so strategically very well located. And basically the experience of companies that are set up in Malta is that they can reach the whole world through Malta. And as I said earlier, the products and services that are manufactured and developed in Malta are reaching all of the world, from the US to any part of Asia, to most of the African countries, as well as the Middle East. So that makes, in general, Malta an important player when it comes to startups, and that is why we're over and above the offering that we can give through our schemes. We're also ensuring that companies are not just here to get a grant, but they can also live and be part of our community. And that is how we see Malta developing in the next years, also economically.
Thank you very much, Kurt. That was really on the business owner point of view. Charles, what would you say that what are the most important things for them to know, but as potential residents? And I'm just jumping on a question that I saw that someone asked if Malta has pure water. So I guess that's resonate with that perspective. So what would you say, Charles?
Basically, I think most probably one of the most interesting points of this discussion was Garrett's intervention. So I think it was an honest opinion of the life in Malta, the quality of life in Malta. And even sort of he shared also the experiences of his colleagues who came for the short term and then eventually stayed, are still here in Malta, and they also brought their families. I think this is a very important thing that one needs to keep in mind. They know that if they relocate to Malta, they will find a country that will welcome them, a country that is safe and secure. It's good to raise children here in Malta. We have very high standard of education. Both our public and private schools are of a very high standard. Our healthcare system is one of the top 5 in the world. These are the basic needs that one needs when he is making a big decision to relocate from his home country to another country, which most probably he would know very little of. So we understand it's a big step that one needs to make. They know that they have to relocate to a new country for quite some time, so that they want these assurances and this peace of mind when they make such big decisions. So apart from the business aspect, which Kurt spoke about very well, and the benefits of startups in Malta, there is also the personal aspect that one needs to take into consideration. And we have also took this perspective in mind when we have developed the program. We will be handling all sort of like the burden and the hassle of residence permits. We will assist them in this process, and we will let them focus on making this new business venture a success. Obviously, as an agency, we are here to support, to provide all the support they need, which goes beyond sort of just a business transaction. We are here to offer genuine help, genuine support, and to answer any questions and clarifications they would like to put forward. Basically, we are sort of here to help and assist these individuals. It's also very nice to hear that there are already some of those who have seen the webinar here today, who are already getting in touch with us, and they are sort of inquiring. I urge the rest to come forward now and even sort of in the future. We hope to welcome them to Malta very soon.
Thank you very much, Charles. And again, thank you everyone to have attended that session. So we had those main takeaways from those two perspectives. Any other concluding remarks before we close the sessions?
I think there is a very important question being made by someone called Saibu. And Saibu is asking basically the differentiator of this residency program. So when it compares to traditional startup accelerators or incubators. So I think one of the more important aspects of the residence program is that a startup that comes outside the European Union will have residency in a European state, and therefore access to the European market, and also liberty to travel within the European Union. And I think that is a very important part and element for startups that want to consider and actually want to export their product. Of course, they incorporate in Malta, and then they would be able to travel through the Schengen area in the European Union and promote and develop their business even further. So that is one very important advantage of the residence program, which differentiates itself from any other accelerator. And with regards to the pure water, no, we have very limited pure water in Malta, just because we're surrounded by sea. But we have been pioneers in turning the sea and salted water into water that can be drank, that you can drink. And it would be interesting to see startups coming up with solutions to help us with the water situation in Malta. And that is something that would be very open to listening.
This is a great invitation, Kurt, and a great way to conclude. I'm sorry. Well, thank you everyone for this amazing session. I had the pleasure today to have again, so Kurt Farrugia, CEO of Malta Enterprise, and Charles Mizzi, CEO of Residency Malta. Everyone will receive an email with the information of contact, and feel free to also reach out to us if you have any questions. In terms of Island Innovation, our next rendezvous is April 18 and 19 for the Island Finance Forum. And we are very happy again to host and promote the growth of islands and what the islands are doing. So again, thank you, gentlemen, for showing how Malta is providing for the startup ecosystem for the world, actually, on the land of Malta. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day, afternoon, night, wherever you are connecting from. And we look forward to our next event or way to connect. Thank you.
Thank you.